There we go. Here's Matt Bailey with SiteLogic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. Search-friendly design, I think, is probably one of the most critical parts of building your website, and it is the absolute most critical part of search engine optimization. You can have the best crack staff of SEOs on your site doing all the improvements, but if it ain't crawlable, it won't matter. So when I go into a company, the first thing we look at is the architecture and the programming of the website, because that's the most important. You gotta fix the foundation before you can fix the house. Now, I want to talk first about programming and how critical it is in allowing access to your site to everybody. And by everybody, I mean not just search engine crawlers, not just visitors, but I also mean those that are using assistive technology. I want to talk first about what's going on with Target.com, because right now they are being sued by the National Federation of the Blind. And they are being sued because blind people using screen readers cannot use Target.com. They don't understand where they are, where they're going. They can't check out. Is anyone here from Target.com? Is anyone here from Target? You're just not letting me know. All right, good. We can talk about them. What Target.com has done, 3 things, and you're going to kick yourself when you see all 3. Number 1, lack of alt attributes. That's all. That's the number 1 thing that the people are asking for is please use alt attributes where you use images. And the judge even asked Target, please just put alt attributes in and we'll be fine. And Target said, no, we don't care about alt attributes. They're ugly. They pop up and they ruin the whole user experience. Target is the only company I know of that has gone to court in order to make their site non-accessible and non-crawlable to search engines. The second thing, image maps without alt text. The third thing is that you have to use a mouse to navigate the site. You can't navigate it with a keyboard only. So what you have effectively done has blocked this site not only to users, but you've blocked it to search engines. Because search engines need the same things that people with screen readers and assistive technology need. Now, Eric talked about Google guidelines. How many of you have read the Google guidelines? Oh, shame. Shame on you. How many of you want good rankings in Google? Are you seeing the connection? Because Google, believe it or not, they want your website. They want your website in their database. They're not in the practice of excluding sites. They want more information because the more information they have in their database, the better information they can go through and present to users. And users are their customer. So they want your website, they want your information, and their guidelines tell you how to do it. And so if you have an artist who's being difficult, just simply go to the artist boss and tell them, Google says to do this. Your artist says to do the opposite. Which do you want? Put it in their hands because Google's telling you what you need to do to have a crawlable, indexable, quality website. What's even better is if you are familiar with the World Wide Web Consortium, or the W3C for short, they are all about standards, web standards, and accessibility. And in fact, if you search for the Web Accessibility Checklist, I would say that everyone should have the checklist printed out and stuck above their desk so that they can look at how their site stacks up in terms of website accessibility. And the Website Accessibility Checklist is almost point for point the same as the Google guidelines. Why is that? Because search engines are the most disabled users that will come to your website. They can't see, they can't hear, they can't click, they can't eat cookies. They are the most disabled things that will come to your website. And so if you want your website to be open to search engine crawlers, it also needs to take into account that people will use your website using screen readers, using keyboard-only navigation, using speech-to-text, text-to-speech. They'll also be on the BART at a 1K per minute connection trying to load your pages. And so if you take all those factors into account, and ultimately, my definition of accessibility is that your site should be available to anyone, anywhere, on any device at any time. If it fails those 4 factors, it's not accessible. Let's look at Target and make fun of them. The alt attribute. The alt attribute is necessary because if you have information inside of images, the search engine will not know what that information is. Neither will anyone on a screen reader. Strip out the images, and that's the joy that you receive. We have nothing but a list of links to pages further in the site. And then also, we only have a target baby title attribute, so that's really not too descriptive, but we know absolutely nothing about what is contained on this page. Now, even more egregious, which means worse, I'm learning new words, is look at the information that is contained in the image. It's all the sales information. If you are blind, you cannot save 10 to 20% on baby stuff. You can't get free shipping because you don't know where to click to get that stuff. In fact, you can't even tab navigate on your keyboard to get there because it's all image maps. So Target has gone to extreme lengths not to give any information to the search engines and not to let people use their website. However, we can make fun of other companies as well because unfortunately, sometimes things get in the way, maybe politics, where someone says, I want to know what country did people come from before we let them into the website. As you'll notice, there are no other links on this homepage. We are requiring people to make 3 clicks in order to get past the homepage to the information that they need. Number 1, they have to click the drop-down menu. They have to select a country out of the 280 options that will be presented, and then click Continue. Guess what a search engine crawler will not do? Select a country and click Continue. You've effectively stopped search engines with this homepage. And you've probably stopped a number of users that don't want to select a country. However, you may say, we don't ask people to select a country. We ask them to select a language, so we're much better. Unfortunately, once you require people to make a selection and then click Go, you have stopped search engines, especially when that is the only link on the page. Now, Prince Tennis. I've been watching this website for a couple of years, ever since they decided to go to a Flash-based website. It's been a great free fall in the rankings because if you get this great Flash commercial and all this movement, you end up with the back page, which says here, select a region. Now, what's absolutely fantastic about Flash is that you can't control what gets into the search engine. Because what happens in this search engine result is you get a fantastic marketing message, select your country. And even more compelling is the select a region, Americas, Europe, Africa, Middle East, Asia, Pacific, select a country, Austria. That is your first marketing message to a searcher. And that is the first marketing message someone will ever see about your company if they're using a search engine. Are you willing to put that in the hands of Flash? You shouldn't be. You should want to control that as much as possible, which is why Eric was talking about using that HTML wrapper, making Flash an element of the page, because don't give up control. Don't let the search engines decide what's going to be listed here. You can control it. You can affect what's there. Make a compelling marketing message from the search results rather than just waiting for them to get to your page and see your beautiful little animation. Cluttered URLs, again, before you even start on an SEO campaign, if you got this kind of stuff going on in your URL, forget it. My rule of thumb, if the URL is longer than the bar, you got issues. Don't even look at an SEO. You need to start looking at some architecture stuff. The longer there is and the more characters that are just unfamiliar, the more you need to deal with it. The question is, would you want to type this in to get back to the same page? If not, then you need to change. You need to do something shorter, and also what I like as well is something called the favicon. How many of you are using a favicon in your website? Oh, yes, all right. It's a great way to brand your website, and if you want to get an account rep's ear at an ad agency, talk about branding. This little favicon is just a little tiny graphic file. You load it onto the server. It's called FAVICON, favicon.ico. And every time someone goes to your website in Firefox, it automatically shows up. If they bookmark your website, guess where your brand goes? Into their browser. So it's cheap, it's easy, it's like 5 minutes of work, you got to do it. Now, a couple of things about programming. These are two questions I get consistently because I also have seen some SEO agencies using these as selling points. That if you have validated code that you can rank higher, and that if you're using CSS, you will rank higher. Let's bring a little bit of education to the masses. The first thing is cascading style sheets, CSS. Let's just say I love it. I love CSS because it puts the emphasis on the content of the page rather than the markup. The markup, all that geek stuff, we put in an extra file. That's that stuff that says, make the text centered, make it blue, make it this big, make it blink a lot. All that stuff we put somewhere else, and really, most of what you get on the page is content rich. The advantage there is search engines don't have to parse through a bunch of code. They can get the content. So you get through all that clutter. Now, I love Firefox because they have plugins that make me look really geeky like this, where we stripped out all the images, we're looking at the code, and we're looking at the table structure of Costco, which is a train wreck of a website, if you ever want an example. Costco is using tables upon tables upon tables, which I found out, this is a term that goes cross-cultural because I was calling it nested tables. My wife thought we were going to Costco to get furniture. Some people got that. I'm so happy. I might use it again. All right, so what happens is we can see the structure here that the search engines have to parse through to get through the table structure of the website. Well, what happens is something called linearization, and that's where the search engine reads your code from top to bottom. However, when you use tables, you're laying out the content left to right, and that's not the way the search engine runs. So they linearize everything from top to bottom, and that beautiful little table structure all of a sudden gets crammed together and gets kind of glutted up there. Search engines can get through most of the times, but as soon as you start doing nested tables and things like that, you're going to have problems. Here's why. The search engine starts at the leftmost column, then goes to the next column, then the next column, then the next column. This is why when you look at your website on a mobile device, it looks like crap, because you're using tables. How many of you have looked at your company website in your mobile device? Not an iPhone. Okay, and you like what you see? Oh, couple, good, good. That's why CSS is so beautiful. It's because it's cross-platform. It'll automatically adjust based on where you're at. If you're using a table-based layout, then you are going to get a chunky website in a remote device. And again, when we talk about accessibility, we're talking about mobile devices. We're talking about web-based phones and devices. Anything that you can access a website on, you can make it easier for that access to happen. Now, let's look at CNET, which has gone completely CSS. If you look at their code, it looks a little bit interesting here, but as soon as we linearize it, we know exactly where we're at because the emphasis is on the content. And we can see exactly where we're at. We can still see the hierarchy of information and the content that's on the page. We don't have that smushed together table structure, and in fact, the search engines are reading the content exactly how it presents on the page. And so it looks beautiful on a mobile device. Now, validation. I do ask people to validate their code, mainly for the fact that validation will help you find errors. Just closing tags, things like that. In fact, there have been a number of sites where we've found huge chunks of content with open tags. Validating helped us to find those things, fix them, and the rankings went up. Now, did the rankings go up because we validated and we had validated code? No. It went because we fixed the code. The search engine wasn't seeing the code properly. And so validation helps you fix all those things in the code that the search engine needs to see the code properly. And it also makes sure that the spiders can index content when you're applying standards and accessibility. So validation does not directly increase your rankings, but you will see some results from that. Now I want to talk about architecture very quickly, and this is my tale of two cities. I like talking about this because people rely upon your architecture, your menu, and your navigation system in order to properly navigate your site. Search engines depend upon your navigation structure in order to build an understanding of what keywords you're using, and seeing that repetition and how you classify keywords from one section to another helps them understand more and more about how they can classify your site and how each of the terms relate to one another, and you can help boost your rankings by having a very favorable navigation structure. Let's talk about Breckenridge, Colorado. The first thing is their title. It's somewhat descriptive. Breckenridge, Colorado. Wonderful job there. I'm sure ounces of creativity went into there. Their URL structure starts out pretty well. This is their homepage. So we're here. We can see what's going on. Here's their main navigation down around midway through the page, because obviously their call to action is to get you to start booking a vacation, but obviously you need to know what you can do there first. Now, this is okay as a home page, but once we get further into the structure, let's say we didn't enter at the home page. Let's say we entered at this page, which we have no idea what it's about because it's a repeated title tag. We look at the URL structure. We can get an idea from here that we're at the summer page. If we look at the main navigation, there's absolutely no clue where we're at because there's no notifying area here. Typically, when you're in a subpart of a website or when you're in a section of a website, the main navigation of where you're at should change color, have some sort of notification of where you are at. There's absolutely nothing like that here. But if we look at the navigation in the breadcrumbs, we can see that we can follow back to home, summer, and events. However, if you look at the content on the page, we are talking about snow sculpture championships taking place in January. This does not follow the breadcrumb structure, the navigation structure, or the URL structure of the page. These are all three elements that both users and search engines will look at in order to figure out where am I on this site, what content is on this page based on what I'm looking for. And if I want to find additional content, how do I get there? Everything about the navigational structure of this page says summer. The content says snow sculptures in January. How do I get where I want to go? This does not provide a consistent path of information for the search engine or the searcher. So if we go to another page, again, they've simply repeated the title. If we look here, we're now in summer activities. However, we don't know that from the main navigation. So we're not sure where we are at in this site. The breadcrumb is really the best thing that we have, but here it's presented in white on light gray. So I'm sure you can appreciate the color scheme here, because if you want to hide something from your user, just put it in real low contrast. They'll never see it. But then also we're starting to get some sub-navigation elements here that help us understand what we can do from there, but really it doesn't help you figure out where you are on the site as opposed to where you want to go. Now, very quickly, Rapid City, which is in South Dakota, I liked their menu structure because as soon as you're in here, here's the main navigation. You are in the visitors section. You know that because the main navigation has changed to let you know that you're there. We can see the subtopics here. We can also look at the breadcrumb navigation, which lets us know exactly where we're at. Once we go into some detail information, again, visitors is highlighted on the main navigation. We know that we're in that section. We know what subsection we're in. We also know where in that subsection, what page of content we're on, because we have a visual indicator of a nice white arrow pointing to outdoor recreation, which is supported in the breadcrumb navigation, and we can also see in the navigation of related pages within that category. We know exactly what page we're on. It's reinforced by the navigation, the sub-navigation, by the visual cues, and the content, and if we want to go to some related information, we know exactly where it's located, because now we know that we can rely on this navigation structure to get us there, and we also know that the search engines are taking into account the text that is in this navigation structure in order to build relevancy for each page on the site. So having a crawlable navigation that implements keywords and allows people to figure out where they are is great for users and search engines and helps them get where they're going, because you're building keyword themes, using solution-based keywords of getting people to the information that they need. But also what you want is a consistent and reliable navigation structure. Don't ever, 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 ever change your navigation midway through the site. Keep it the same throughout. Thank you very much for your time. I have more information on my blog here. Thank you for your attention.